No? Go to Ian then.
Thanks. Third time lucky.
Keep
I
trying.
think, yes, I think what the last few days prove is that the party should be turned over as quickly as possible to its canniest, most pragmatic operators, and that's the rank and file. I think this meeting comes at an excellent time. It was pre-planned, but it couldn't have been more timely after the few days we've had. And there was a sort of tension, wasn't there? Because we all want the process to succeed, and we support your party wholeheartedly. And we're also campaigning for it to be democratic against some worrying trends like the sortition and so on, and the secrecy and all the things that have now blown up. And now it's kind of clarified that we trusting the process on the one hand is not really an option at this this stage. Not all parts and all factions of it, certainly. At the same time, we don't want to be wreckers, but we are not the wreckers. It's the rank and file in the last few days who've made a magnificent display of fighting for unity and knocking heads together from below. And actually, it seems saved the thing. So everything's up in the air now. Hopefully, we will be able to not have sortition. If we have to have some imperfect ways of doing things going into the conference, so be it. But we have to have unity as quickly as possible and recognise that it was forced from below and have a party that's democratic going forward, not as a way of wrecking it or a hippy-dippy tyranny of structurelessness, but precisely to maintain unity and not to have this false tyranny of structurelessness ideas of sortition being an alternative to traditional democratic methods that are traditional because they worked and the Labour Party didn't work, not because they had the rule book, but because the right were always able to get away with breaking it and doing whatever they want. One last point. I'm very glad, I'll say through the ether now to Zara, since she isn't here, that she's dropped her legal action. I think that showed real maturity. I hope that the de-escalation can continue with the Informations Commissioner stuff from the other side, because we can't say, let's come together and see you in court at the same time. We don't want it to become a Jarndyce v. Jarndyce thing where all this fundraising from the membership ends up in the coffers of the lawyers. And we want to start members and get that portal back up and running and get well beyond the 20,000 to sign up in a few hours.
Okay, thanks. Gareth, seeing as you wait.
Thank you. I'm assuming I can be heard now.
Yeah.
My question is a very practical matter. I think that all of the speakers have been well received, and it's probably fair to say that we're in furious agreement about what we want our new party to be. The question before us now is how we make it happen. Now, in terms of the conference that we're still being told will be held in November, I would have thought that basically what we want out of that is fairly straightforward. That is a constitution that is unequivocally socialist in its objective, committed to democracy and genuine membership engagement, including how the leadership is elected. But of course, what precedes that is the conference arrangements. How are we going to influence that? We have, right from the very start, had repeated statements from both Jeremy and Zara that this is going to be different, it's going to be democratic, it's going to be a grassroots-led movement. But we are still bombarded almost on a daily basis with pronouncements from the top about there's going to be a conference, this is who will be allowed to come, you know, in terms of the sortition and so on. So we all know what we want. My question is, what is the plan going to be coming out of this meeting to how we influence, first of all, the conference arrangements? I'm assuming that there are people here far better connected than I who will have direct access to not only Jeremy and Zara, but the people around them, so that we can put our position not only about the way in which the conference is arranged and who can attend, but also to provide a draft socialist constitution. There's plenty of them out there. We know the work that's been done by smaller parties that have developed over the last couple of years, and there are a couple of very good examples out there, which I probably don't need to mention. I know that people who've been involved in this group in the campaign for the Mass Workers' Party have access to those. My question is, how are we going to get that message across to the people who are supposed to be organising conference?
Oh, you've got lost in again.
We lost Matthew.
Oh, people heard you.
I'm not sure where Matthew's gone. Should we just move on to the next speaker? Darren, do you want to speak next? I'll try and unmute you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, just some points from the discussion. Firstly, earlier Ian was talking about a mass workers' party, to build a mass workers' party. One thing that we shouldn't forget, that this is a party for everyone, and that includes unemployed, disabled, people like me with health issues, minorities. And it's great to give union power and the unions to have a voice, but a lot of people do get switched off about that as a rhetoric. And so we've got to think about, my question is, how do we reach out to the minorities that we always say we're going to support, and also, especially with the disability situation at the moment, are being hammered? How do we incorporate them as this is the party that will be supporting their needs and that they can get behind, and then that they can also go out and canvass for and do all the things that we need. We need everybody to be involved in this and not exclude or be centric to certain factions like the unions. I am in a union. I'm a supporter of that, so it's not union bashing. Also, I've been involved in going to several different meetings from different groups with your party at the grassroots. None of these, only the Brighton one, where we had speakers coming in that were notable. People, you know, had seen either on TV or been politicians before or whatever. And the other question is, how do we keep the enthusiasm for the grassroots that is generating that themselves, and how people have rallied against what happened in the last few days has been amazing. We've actually had more people joining these groups. We've had more people. I thought it would be the opposite, but more people are joining the WhatsApp groups. More people are trying to get their opinions across, and that enthusiasm is actually is momentum. So how do we, or if I can use that word, how do we carry on that momentum and make sure that we are giving our energies to supporting these people? But everyone's very lip service to how we build a grassroots party, but how do we actually make it feel to these people, which includes myself, how do we make that feel that this is how we're going forward and we are supporting those people with all the efforts? One of those things is money. A lot of people on grassroots are spending money that they can't afford. Low income is another issue that this party needs to look at. It's great having you know, the top echelon who are millionaires coming forward and saying, you know, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But actually, it's people being out of pocket in the grassroots. Where does that money come from? People have put their subscriptions in, a membership. Yeah. And last thing I just want to say, sorry, is that there's a demographic issue for me as well. A lot of white middle-aged men on a lot of things that I've seen and having a chance. Now, I am myself a white middle-aged man, so you know, And I think we need to encourage a different demographic. In this meeting, I would like to see more diversity, more young people. So how do we get them interested in this discourse and coming onto these meetings and being a part of this? Anyway, said enough, I think.
Thank you, comrade. Go back to Trish.
Hello, thanks for letting me speak. Some great contributions and speakers today. It's really inspiring. I've just got a couple of things I wanted to say. I've been really despondent for a couple of years about politics, and this party starting to emerge the way it did was so exciting again. Crispin's kept me going every week, every Sunday, pretty much through the difficult, what I'd call the wilderness years for a bit, really. We've kept together through actually connections like this, and it's been really important. But what I will say is I'm really concerned that the party looked like it was going to be extremely democratic, but a couple of things I think we have to accept. Probably if we're going to attract young people that we don't know who don't attend meetings like this, I think Jeremy does need to be some sort of figurehead, if not the leader. I like Zara. I think a lot of us do. I think her reactions were a bit impetuous, but I didn't like that. I think it shows inexperience. But I mean, I think a lot of people admire her in some ways, of course. But what I will say is it's opened up a bit of a can of worms. I think the 4 independent MPs that Jeremy sits with could be lovely, could be fabulous, but why the hell are they suddenly in prominent positions? None of us really know who they are. I'm not really interested in signing up to a group of people where I don't know that they're socialists. I'm with them on Palestine. I'm glad they're on the right side of that discussion. But this needs to be led by socialists, even if some people who are not socialists join it. And I think another really important thing that's vital is that we shouldn't have any spads appointed by the big cheeses, whoever those big cheeses ended up being. And I loved hearing Ken Loach. We all loved hearing Ken Loach full stop. But when he said if they're not going to do it right, they need to step aside. I am not happy with people being appointed. I know people have talked about certain members that we've seen who seem to be involved in the arrangements already. These people were in the arrangements before. We've ended up with a company owned by what looks like 2 people. This is Landsman and Momentum all over again if we let that happen. Anybody who works for your party, they have to be applying for a job that's where there's a criteria, a job description. They have to meet criteria, they have to be interviewed, and they have to beat everyone else to the position. And everyone, and they can be members of the party, of course, but the truth is they have to be employed and they have to work for us. Yeah, not tell us what to do. I am not going to be back in the Labour Party where you got people, staffers, who decide who's in and out of the party. None of that nonsense. Anybody who's involved in making decisions for us has to be voted in by us and voted out when we've had enough of them. That's what I think needs to happen. Cheers, you lovely lot.
I wonder if Matthew's frozen up, actually. Trish, Chester, do you want to go next? I'm trying to unmute you. Okay.
Thanks for letting me
Right, go ahead.
thanks for letting me speak, and hello everyone. Fantastic turnout. Basically, the previous 2 speakers have asked all my questions, but I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for organising the meeting. I think it's gone really well, and especially to Audrey. I've admired you for so long, so it's good to see you. If even not, I have seen you in person. It's good to see you again. I just wish that your party has all the support that it needs. And I was wondering, I know it's a long way off, but when we do a manifesto, maybe Jeremy's manifesto of 2017 would be a good discussion document for that first manifesto of your party. Thank you.
Do you want to go next? I'll just unmute you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not going to speak for very long. I mean, it's a pity that Zara Sultana isn't here because there's a few questions I wanted to ask. Not hostile questions, but just questions about she might know about things that are going on. Because she's at least got some input in the have any idea when the recruitment of members is likely to resume? Because, I mean, that might seem like a silly question, but it's actually crucial to a proper conference. You can't really have a conference without members. And there are actually very few at the moment. I'm one of them. I actually signed up during the 2-hour window, But, I mean, I don't think there's a great deal of disagreement on here. Everybody wants basically the same thing. And it's good to hear that the party is still growing at the base, I mean, that is the counter tendency to the faults at the top. But I think everybody knows that we're still in the dark about the process whereby these plans for the party from above have been made and propagated. I mean, that letter that arrived with the sort of a blueprint or the roadmap was very belated, and it seemed to come out of the blue. At least the letter about the membership that actually started signing people up was actually something real, it was a disappointing event when it was stymied, whatever. I'm not going to say too much about that, but we desperately need an elected conference arrangements committee. I think that's true, and it's basically the points that are made by both this democratic platform I've just been reading and the Our Party statement as well. I mean, in different ways, they're calling for the same thing. And I think we should say that here, if that's appropriate as well. I'll leave it there. Thank you, comrades. Cheers.
Thanks. It wasn't expected to be chair, but I think Matthew's lost his connection. I just want to ask Audrey if she'd be prepared to take the chair back. Because we seem to have lost Matthews. Would you be able to do that? I've actually made you a co-host. Yeah, okay. So, Larry, do you want to go next while Audrey's sorting herself out?
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't have a question for the speakers, but what I do have is a question for your party supporters, and that is, if we want to be gear away from what might be termed as being manipulated by so-called unelected leaders so far, is that we need to build a grassroots by having an organisation strategy. Now, based on regional teams, elected and accountable, a federation of groups, which includes everybody in the region, and not waiting for instruction from above. We've had this before in the Labour Party, and we certainly had it in our particular area in East Sussex. What we did was, when we had instructions from region, was we got on and organised our own meetings, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to have, if your party is to be successful, we've got to have people that are committed to doing jobs of work and taking up responsibility and calling and organising meetings in our own area, and not waiting for somebody to say, yes, it's okay for you to do it. And when we did, and I'm not even sure and confident that a November conference is going to be democratic, because how do you get regional representation to a conference at this particular time? And I think that at any point within the policies of our organisation of your party has to be based on democratic Republican principles. Thank you very much.
Harry, I think you're next while Audrey's just unmuting herself. Do you want to go next? Harry Hutchinson.
Yeah, thank you. Look, we need to explain this new formation. We need to explain its development to here and now. We need also to explain its limitations. And above all, the enormous illusion that it's going to create, that this is going to be the panacea for the working class, to effectively deal with the problems they have. This new formation really came about because on the background and in areas, people were moving away from the Labour Party, about to set up their new formation in their own areas, effectively elect and stand as candidates. And it was that effectively when Corbyn, along with his 5 MPs, along with Sultana, decided that they were going to have to intervene with a new formation. Sultana was the one off the starting blocks, but was very quickly pulled into line by Corbyn. And she even suggested a co-leadership that was also very quickly pulled into line. We now have reached a position that Sultana wants to drive things forward, and she's been restricted from doing so. It's dragging, but it's dragging for a purpose. You see, it's already split between the two, between Corbyn and Sultana. Sultana is talking about taking on the establishment. Corbyn isn't. Corbyn has no desire whatsoever of taking on the wealth and the establishment in Britain. We've been there before with him. And it was a limited socialist program that he intervened in, along with everything else. Don't forget, the purge against socialists in the Labour Party began under his leadership. And it's the same thing we're now seeing again. This is not meant to be a mass party and a mass formation that's going to be under democratic control of the people. It's going to be the exact opposite. It's going to be a formation that is going to be very controlled by Corbyn and by trade union leaders and people around him. That's the essence of this. Sultana will probably be pushed more and more to the sidelines because she is driving it forward and she's talking about taking on the establishment. That's why she will be sidelined more and more. We've seen this, comrades, all over Europe. Podemos, PASOK, Syriza, Dailink. We're now about to see exactly the same thing again. This is an illusion, comrades, that this new formation is a way forward. Just finally, is the problems that the UK faced is not going to be resolved by any parliamentary government. It's over. The British economy is facing having to go to the IMF this year. We're broke. Same with France, same with Italy, same with Germany. There is one way out for the working class, and that is the working class. In a new formation that should not be built at this level, it needs to be built at the grassroots and workers' committees. It has to be built from the bottom up, not from the middle down. That's the mistake that's going to be made here again. We need to prepare the working class here and in Europe to smash the capitalist state that is collapsing around us. And their only way out is war. War with Russia. That's the only way that they see out. These are the serious issues that we are faced. A new formation that this here is not going to be the one that's going to tackle those and take us forwards. We've got to take this message into the working class and prepare them for what's ahead of us. Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Harry. I'm afraid we're still struggling with the chair. Audrey's having trouble unmuting, so I'll carry on for now. So I'll ask Ewan in next.
Hello. Is everybody able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, yeah.
Lovely. So I believe I'm one of the young people that's been talked about, 17. And I'm also on the executive committee of the Democratic Socialists for your party. So I've just got a few things I'd like to say. So we stand at a turning point. Capitalism is driving humanity into crisis. It's dividing workers. It's destroying nature. It's waging endless war. There's no half measures, no compromises, no illusions that can be had. If we're to win, we must fight with clarity, unity, courage. We need to fight is the main thing. We must stand for socialism, the end of capitalism, profit and private ownership, and the collective liberation of humanity and the planet. We must be internationalist, anti-imperialist, anti-racist, uncompromisingly opposing Zionism, other forms of domination worldwide. We need to be mass socialist, rooted in working class life, not defined by elections, but by struggle. We must adopt a strategy to win power, overturn the British constitutional order, and fight for a democratic republic. We must be a radical democracy with full member control, collective leadership, and freedoms to debate and dissent. We must unify the left from radical social democrats leftwards in a pluralistic, multi-tendency party with open, recognised factions, but united in programme. We must be a unitary party of individual members, combining strategic unity with local autonomy, but we should never be a fiefdom or a federation. We must ensure staff are politically neutral, accountable, and servants of the membership. We must fight all oppression, racism, misogyny, transphobia, ableism, and defend liberation for all or for none. And we must prioritise mass political education. We must equip members to think critically and organise effectively. In short, we must not just build another party, but the party of our class, the instrument of socialism, liberation and democracy. We must act now without compromise and without delay, and we will win, for history is on the side of the working class, the proletariat. There is no alternative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ewan. Move on to the Burns brothers, Dominic Byrne or John.
It's Dominic Byrne, yeah. I just wanted to make a couple of points. I think the first thing that the party's got to be is anti-capitalist, because when I look round, I've been in the Labour Party, or I was in the Labour Party for 55 years. And my time at work, I was an active trade unionist, and we were always combating the employers on issues. And I think every issue that you look at today that's a problem, you can look behind it and find capitalism, whether it's global warming, whether it's deforestation, whether it's poverty and all the other things, and war and what have you. So we've got to be an anti-capitalist party and fight against capitalism in the interest of the working class. And I think it should be made clear that the working class is now made up of doctors, lawyers, solicitors, as well as manual workers and all the rest of it. The more and more capitalism is grinding every sort of independent worker that used to be separate into the working class. And I think that there's a couple of points I'd like to make about the structure. I think that the one thing I think is really important for the party to take on board is that there's no separate parliamentary Labour Party that decides policy and decides organisation. The parliamentary representatives of our party have got to be delegates of the party under the control of the leadership and the membership. And they've got to be there, not at the will of elections, but just simply on the will of the members. If you've got a constituency that's dissatisfied with an MP, they've got the right to get rid of them. And that should be enshrined in any rules and regulations. And I think the other thing that's worrying me about the conference, you've got a conference representing possibly 800,000, possibly more, coming up in a month's time, sometime. And I think that you've got to decide at that conference that all officials elected at that conference have got a period of office of 1 year. They can stand again the next year if they're doing a good job. But if they're not standing, if they're not doing a good job and they're not doing what the members want them to do, the members have got the right to remove them at the next conference. And I think that's a step that we should be putting in to the organisation of the party. And we don't want any privileged members, parliamentary or other, controlling the party. The party's got to be controlled by the members, but the members have got to have a voice and people to put that voice forward. And I think that's why we need to sort of really pressure on for branches and committees of districts, for members to meet up and decide what the policies should be and what we want out of this party. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Don. Just before we go on, I'm not really prepared to chair. I'm not sure what the meeting plan is, so I'm asking either Roger or Eric Barnes to take over. Would that be possible? One of you.
Well, I agree with the nomination of Eric.
Right, Eric, could you take over? I've made you co-host, so you should be able to unmute yourself. Ah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
I think
go.
Steve Freeman's next.
Steve, over to you. And I'll just remind time.
Thank you, Eric. And nobody's really made what I would say the Republican case, which was originally made by Tony Benn, not so far. Larry mentioned it quite rightly, and Ewan mentioned it as well in passing. But the problem that we've got is that the Labour left and the left don't really do democracy except
selfishly for themselves. We want democracy in our party, so we want that so we can be listened to, so we can be heard, so that we can vote. But Larry mentioned Republican democratic principles. That is to say, sovereignty must rest with the members. All officials and representatives must be elected, accountable, subject to recall, and paid the average wage. But nobody so far thought, wouldn't that be a good idea for the country? We do want what we want in our party. Nobody thought that'd be a good idea for Britain. And yet we're living in a country where our democracy is collapsing towards fascism. It's wrecked, it's dying, it's collapsed. We're in a serious, serious danger because of a failing democracy. When the number of fascists go from 30,000 one demonstration to over 150,000 next, seriously, we need to wake up, and nobody's mentioned it so far. Ken Livingstone, by the way, not Ken Livingstone, Ken Loach. The programme, Ken never mentioned, he made 6 points. He didn't mention democracy once in any of it. So he's really talking about the 1945 social monarchy welfare state that was repeated in 2017, 2019, that more or less doesn't do anything about democracy, ignores it. That social monarchy is dead. It's a dead duck, and it's not going to come back in its old form. There's a growing crisis of democracy in the UK, and nobody so far in this meeting has taken that seriously or even thought to mention it. We are living in cloud cuckoo land. If we don't get our act together and start thinking about the country, the United Kingdom, Britain, its democracy, and its failures of democracy, then we as a left are gonna be nowhere in what's happening. And fascism will take over because there won't be any serious opposition to it.
Thanks, Steve. I apologise. I can see everybody who's got their hand up, and I apologise if I'm not taking people in order. Lynn Gunningle, would you be okay to speak next? You've been unmuted. Floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to echo Darren's contribution. As a person who's not working at the moment myself, I looked at the numbers. There's 69 million people in this country. 34 million of them are working to keep the other 35, and obviously that includes children, students, pensioners who are no longer working. So we must be careful with our language. I find that the language is very 1980s. I find it's not inclusive to everybody. If you talk about building a workers' party, that doesn't include me. And people say, well, if you're at home keeping house, looking after children or relatives, you are working. But people who are carers, who are at home, or students, they don't actually see themselves as a working person. As soon as you start talking about a party for the workers, now, of course, this party must have the unions at its core, because they are the people that are keeping the country running. But I really, really would ask people to be very careful about their language. Sick people, disabled people, vulnerable people have been left behind. I haven't heard the word peace mentioned for so many years. It's like we've almost dropped it out of our vocabulary. We need to bring back good, positive words, and we need to drop all that, what I call plastic politics from the last century. We've had it up to our eyeballs, capitalist, put a shine on it, put a bit of glitter on it, and suddenly, they're calling it politics. I'd like to really go back to grassroots. I'd like to use more modern language and be much more inclusive. That's my contribution. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much indeed, Lynn. And yeah, the way we communicate, the language we use is absolutely vital. Again, apologies if we're not in order, but Tom Costello, would you like to go next, Tom? You've been unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so hi, my name is Tom. I'm calling in from Knowsley in Merseyside. I've recently founded with some others the Knowsley Community Independents, and I'm also a member of Socialist Alternative. So it's obviously extremely disappointing news what's happened, with the falling out between Corbyn and Sultana, but we really shouldn't be despondent, and we shouldn't also, we need to avoid the temptation to fall into despair with this, because it's obviously also called the class struggle for a reason. and that includes struggles and also struggles within our own organisations. And I suspect that, you know, coming out of this meeting, we'll have to keep organising, and this isn't going to be the last battle after this conference. I just want to second something that Naomi mentioned before about this platform for a democratic party. In my opinion, and I can post the link again in the chat for people to sign it. In my opinion, it's an absolutely key tool for the rank and file of this party to use in fighting to change the course of the party. You know, a bit of a rallying point, really, in many ways, because what it's calling for is a lot of the things that have already been said in this meeting: branch structures for a democracy based on delegates, delegate meetings, delegate elections, for the right of you know, branch delegates to elect the leadership, keep a check on the leadership, move its own motions to the conference, things that are really the ABC of democracy and should be taken for granted, but obviously are things that we're having to fight for. And I think as much as a lot of people welcome our party, it lacks a call for these things, and essentially calls for a founding conference along the lines of what's already being proposed by the existing leadership, which would be a very undemocratic conference. So I think it's just very, very important that we don't put the fight for party democracy to one side, just in the name of getting the party going. It's, you know, we have to do it in the right way, and this platform for democracy is key. The second thing, it's crucial, like, not just what the party stands for. Completely agree with the need for the party to fight for a socialist program, you know, and so on. Also for it to be a working class party, but it's also what the party does. And you know, we talk about the need for a party that's fundamentally different to the, you know, to the Labour Party. We can't have Labour Party Mark II. I think we all agree on that. But the important thing is that it's a party based on struggles taking place, class struggle. So on October 18th, for example, there's going to be a march to launch the party in the north. And I think the fact that it's a march is absolutely key. It's going to be in Huddersfield, and it's being organised by a group around West Yorkshire called the People's Alliance for Change and Equality. I'll post a link to that, and I just think it's really, really key that anyone who's near Huddersfield or can get to Huddersfield joins that, because it's expressing this party is about something different. It's about using methods of struggle. It's not just about what happens inside Parliament, it's what happens in the workplaces, what happens on the streets, and that's where, you know, gains for the, you know, for the you know, for most of us, the working class, are really going to be made. So yeah, I mean, I'll stop talking there. I mean, I'll post a link to the you know, to those two things, the platform democracy and you know, this March of the North on the 18th of October. I think they're two things that we should really, really have on our radar, and I'd urge people to show their support for both of them. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tom. Thanks very much. We'll try and get everybody in. Danny Spate next, please. You'll be unmuted in a second, I hope, Danny. Yeah, floor's yours.
Thank you. I'm going to try and be as quick as I can. I just want to get across how angry people are, and that Zara and Jeremy and the people around them should hang their heads in shame at the way that this has carried on this last week. Ken Loach mentioned that there's a need for a new party. There's something else as well. There's an opportunity for a new party, because the Labour Party is no longer the broad church it always claimed to be. There's room for a new party to come through, and we're wasting it if this carries on as it has this last week. I'm one of the expelled members from the Labour International CLP, which you may remember, some of you people from previous conferences in the Labour Party, where we pushed forward the idea of open selection, and it was stopped by both Jeremy and the Unite Union. We could have got that in, and what a difference that would have made to the quality of the MPs that are now part of this awful Labour government that's going on at the moment. It could have been totally different. Just to keep it short. So amongst our people that were expelled, the feeling is just pure anger. And I'm going to stop there and not get any further into it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Can I just ask the meeting? We're close to finishing now. I do believe Audrey, our opening chair, is going to do some closing remarks. But with your permission, I'd like us to continue for another approximately 15 minutes. Would that be okay with the meeting?
Can I say that Audrey gave me a phone call just now? Something has broken down and she's trying to get access again to the meeting. Okay. But if she doesn't make it, we'll have to accept that. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
she's actually back in the meeting. I thought I saw her a minute ago.
I can see hands going up for us continuing for another 15 minutes. So I hopefully have got everybody that's got their hands up to speak. I think it's Edward Grierson next. Edward, we can't see you, but hopefully you're going to be unmuted in a second. 1 sec, the floor's yours, Edward.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name's Edward. I'm fairly new to this whole thing, but happy to be here tonight. Love to hear from you all. I suppose what I was going to say was mostly around policy and how we convey it, because I think there is, when we've talked tonight a lot about accountability and transparency and democratic governance in this party. And I think we also need to think about how that applies to the policies we put forward when we sort of talk about things like having a welfare state that works for everyone, having, public ownership of the key utilities, that we're not just trying to sort of photocopy the sort of 1945 in terms of, this very sort of centralized, very unaccountable public services that were, heavily focused around sort of this handful of bureaucrats, and, to ensure that there is, democratic representation of these industries through, boards for sort of union reps and public, and also with, recognizing, obviously we want a welfare state that works for everyone, but we do need to have to sort of rethink what the welfare state in the 21st century means, in terms of, because a lot of people, can speak from experience about how sort of intensely bureaucratic and convoluted the modern welfare state is. And just my 2 cents on the sort of policy and how we advocate for it, and what sort of policy we have going forward.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you. I did have on my list next Carell Buxton, but I've lost Carell. Does Carell still want to? Where's Carell gone? I can see Carell.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now, am I?
Yeah, floor's yours.
Okay, just a couple of very quick points. Taking from some messages and ideas from this meeting, I think it's really listening to everybody, how vital it is going to be for people to really get organised in their locality. I moved about a year ago from the East End of London, where I'd lived for most of my life, to the South Coast. And already we've got a little group of people interested in your party. And someone else has set up a meeting on the later next month. I hope it's going to be huge. And that's what we've got to do. I'm not going to be relying on anybody else, leaders in the movement, to do it for me. I disagree with Harry Hutchinson, who said that he didn't think that Jeremy wanted to challenge wealth. But I think Jeremy most probably does want to challenge wealth. But if we had what we had in Momentum, if we have that again, then it was bottled, wasn't it? Let's be, blunt about it. It was bottled. And you know, everything's been ratcheted up, and it's a very scary situation. And I just think that people need to get involved with any positive protesting and organising in our locality. So that's what I'm taking from this meeting today, and linking with like-minded people, like the wonderful people that are on this the Zoom this evening. So thanks to everybody who's spoken. I've learned a lot. My final comment is about a worker's wage. You can't have democratic leadership when your MPs earn 95k. You can't. It's not possible. Those MPs and anyone who represents us must be on a worker's wage. And it might be difficult. I think Naomi alluded to this in her bit when she said that, you know, it's hard. Not everybody's got, you know, the same language, the same ideas. There may be people who've got backward ideas. There might well be. I mean, you know, some of us might have some backward ideas, and we're learning from each other, and we have to be tolerant. But if you had MPs on a worker's wage, that would cut through a lot of it. That is what we need to be doing, is demanding those things. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Tony Briscoe next, and then it will be Josephine. I'll be calling after Tony. Floor's yours, Tony. You're about to be unmuted. 1 second, Tony.
It's not working. Okay, done now.
Got it. Okay, thanks very much, and for a very interesting meeting. When Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party, I explained to him that I'd never been a member of the Labour Party, and I had no intention of joining it. As a lifelong member of the Communist Party, I've also no intention of joining your party as an individual member. But I reminded Jeremy that my own party had, since its inception in the 1920s, lobbied for the right to affiliate to Labour. We've never seen that happen. I have worked for Labour in elections here and there over the decades, but my trade union branch, Unite's affiliated to Labour, and my own branch is affiliated to a number of constituency Labour parties. Now, I know that Unite has been making some rumbles about whether it should continue to be affiliated to Labour. There's a lot of discussion over the last few years about what the scope was for the establishment of a new party of the working class. And many people have said, what a great idea, but as long as the trade unions stick with Labour, it's not really going to have the best chance of success. Now, I think that if we're going to reach out to as many people across what we call the working class as possible, I think that this new party would be missing a trick if it did not provide somewhere in its constitution for affiliated bodies. Affiliated, even if it's trade union branches, like we're affiliated to CLPs and to local trades council, etc., because that enables tapping into a wider section of the community, particularly that's already organised in a trade union, and also potentially tapping into wider sources of funds and mobilising people. It's not all going to be achieved by loose coalitions of people in an area, positive as that would be, but I think it'd be missing a trick if it did not provide for affiliations. I've got to be wary of groups trying to take over, but I do feel that I would like to be able to give the best support to a new party like that through my trade union branch, if it was possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. And the issue of affiliation is certainly going to be one of the matters that I'm sure we'll return to and debate. Thank you. Josephine, we'll just wait for you to be unmuted, and the floor's yours.
Thank you. It's been interesting listening to everybody speak. There's been a couple of interesting, not discrepancy, I don't think is the word, but people have been talking about grassroots and talking about it's from the bottom, but the reality is Jeremy Corbyn announced and Zara announced the launching of a new party, and 800,000 people expressed an interest within about 48 hours. And I don't think that should be, I think that needs to be understood and valued, that in terms of bringing people together on a national basis, both Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn draw crowds. They draw people together. And then at the converse, in terms of grassroots, since the announcement of your party, I've watched and been part of on the Wirral, for example, a community independence group starting and then splitting into regions of the Wirral and having socials and political cafes and any number of things. So it has already sparked a massive swelling root response, I think. And if we remember that if we have a socialist party, that's the answer to those people who are protesting for peace in Palestine. It's the answer to the people who want to stop homelessness. It's the answer to the people who want to get rid of food banks. It's the answer, you know, all of these different campaign groups that have been working so hard to fight for a particular issue. If they can see the value of your party as the answer to all of these issues, then we become even stronger if we unite all of these, because they're already a grassroots network of experienced campaigners. So, and then just one thing as a matter of protocol, since all these meetings have sort of propped up and I've been listening, going and attending things, I've noticed a new fashion, or maybe it's not new, maybe it's just I'm old, a fashion for we'll take questions in batches of 3 or batches of 5, or we'll take questions from over here. And my experience is those questions never get answered. People ask their questions and the floor, the panel, the whoever may answer a couple of them, but they cherry pick the questions they want to answer. And I don't know what was wrong with people asking a question and somebody answering it. I just, you know, if we're talking about democratic discussion, I would like a panel to actually answer the questions that people have. Thank you very much. And thank you to whoever organised and hosted tonight.
Thank you, Josephine. Could I just ask for James and Tommy, if at all possible, can you keep the contributions to a minute? We are running out of time and we need to sum up. Tommy, we'll just ask for you to be unmuted and then it'll be you, James. So I've got me watch on, Tommy. The floor's about to be yours in a moment. Floor's yours, Tommy.
Thank you. All I wanted to say was we're all thinking these marvellous ideas and whatever, and I think it's great. But what I wanted to say was, what are the ruling class going to do about us? You know? Are they going to come down on us? Yeah? Because that's the thing that worries me. You know, I mean, they had the thing, when Jeremy was the leader of the Labour Party, they had troops out firing bullets at pictures of him. So, you know, that's my only thing, is I think that the ruling class will fight back against us as a party. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you. And James, we'll just ask for you, James Reeve, we'll just ask for you to be unmuted. And floor's yours, James.
Can you hear me? Yeah?
We can.
Right. Most of the points I was going to make have already been made by others, in particular Ewan and the last comment that spoke about average wage for representatives. But there is one point outstanding that I want to make, and that is that the Labour Party is not dead, and it is not going to keel over dead anytime soon. In Germany, in the early 20s, they didn't just call the leader a racist and a sexist, whilst themselves applying racist and sexist filth to Diane Abbott. They actually shot the leaders of the German Communist Party. And yet, up until the rise of Hitler, they remained the leading party of the working class. We need to put aside the idea that we're just going to surpass the Labour Party in the next couple of years. There's a good chance that the Labour Party will lose the next election and will turn to the left. In particular, I'm predicting that Clive Lewis will launch a bid for leadership and will move the party in a left reformist rhetorical fashion. That will cut across a lot of the ground of this new party. And we need to be prepared now. I'm for everybody having the right to say and do whatever they want in this new party, providing we have unity of action. I myself am a Marxist, and I would support the formation of a Marxist platform in the new party. But I would also support every other political tendency having an open association of whatever political creed they wanted to put forward. We will gain nothing by excluding people. I'll leave it at that, comments, because time's pressing on.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope everyone's had the opportunity to speak that wanted to. And I'd like to thank Audrey and Matthew for chairing tonight's meeting. I'd like to thank all of the speakers for giving their time, and I'd like all of the people that contributed, and most importantly, I'd like to thank everyone that's participated in tonight's meeting. Now, I'm going to finish the meeting. I did actually have my hand up and didn't expect to be chairing, and again, apologies due to the technical information. The quick bit of information I want to share with you is I'm from a town, Scarborough, in the northeast of England, that unfortunately recently had a town council election, and 11 out of 15 new councillors that were elected for the Reform Party. And unfortunately, over the recent period, red crosses have appeared on our roundabouts and our crossings across the town. What happened a couple of weeks ago, we had our first Your Party related meeting in our town, and 70 people attended that meeting. A lot of them were young people. It was a good cross section of ordinary people. And we had our second meeting last Wednesday. And that meeting was absolutely inspiring. We had the issues that have been mentioned about how we're going to tackle housing, how we're going to tackle the problems with the health service, how we're going to support picket lines. We had a lot of excitement about getting our ideas across by door knocking, by stalls, by having book clubs, by putting movies on, by having political discussions. People were saying, let's have discussions about how we can counteract reform. And I think I put to people on this call tonight, I suspect that's what's happening in your area is similar to what we're experiencing in our little town, as has been captured by Crispin's show. And what I hope we're going to do, subject to discussion at our meetings, where we really are trying to get as many people as involved in possible. We're not trying to get a little clique to control things. We're trying to get everybody involved. And I think what we'll be able to do, I hope, we'll be quite capable of democratically electing delegates to groups that where we want representation. And as has been mentioned, please have a look at the platform for a Democratic Party. And to go right back to a question earlier, I think what we'll be doing is just in the spirit of basic trade unionism. We're getting together, we're linking up with other people across the country. There's Crispin's show that does that. There's the event that's taking place in Birmingham, the campaign, what's it called? The CAG, Community Action Group Network. If your groups aren't involved in that, please do get involved. And so,
Eric, excuse me, Eric.
Sorry, Audrey, the floor's back to you. Sorry. Thank you.
No,
But
just
thank everybody for attending. Back to you all.
Okay, just to say that I've just noticed that Naomi's had the platform for democracy in the new party just posted on the thing. So can I just try to answer a few questions? I'll do it very quickly because I know you're all well, just do the sum up anyway very quickly. Just to say, I think we're all agreed that about the anger. There isn't any of us who absolutely, isn't livid that all these years we've waited all our lives, some of us, to build a mass party of the left. So that goes without saying because it's been said so many times. But we also agree that it has to be radical. There's not one of us who thinks tampering around the edges will do anything for us. That we've got to be forthright, and that's how we attract the youth, because the youth are impatient. They've absolutely been stonewalled. They have absolutely been denied the future that we had. But I must have to say, we fought for our future. We fought for these things like the National Health Service, Meals on Wheels, free education. Somebody asked me today, what did you do? What happened? How did you have free education? Couldn't believe that people went to university free. And I just think we have to use all these arguments. We have to say, it's not a dream. We had them. We fought for them and we won them. And that's what this party's about. But the only way you do it, the only way you do it is to make sure that the people that you represent, and this is one of the big calls for the democracy platform, for me anyway, the main thing is that we have mandatory reselection. That nobody has to sit in a meeting and put their hand up, be the nervous one that challenges the MP, because the MP is pretty decent, but if the MP isn't decent enough, they go on and betray us and betrayers and betrayers. And nobody should have to stick their hand up and say, I don't think this MP is good enough. Because it's very intimidating and you get argued out of it and all the rest of it. And we've never had that. We've never had it. That every year an MP has to face and be accountable to their own constituency. And that's it. And you know what? If they're not prepared to do that, we don't want them. We'll go on to somebody else. And it's got to be for we've got to be for our delegates as well. If you're a delegate to conference and you don't do the right thing and you've been mandated, or maybe it's just part of the policy, you do what you're supposed to do. You represent the people of your constituency, the people who bother to go along and discuss at meetings and think long and hard about these issues. But we also need automatic recall and as well. So in other words, if nobody's going to wait 5 years before we say, hang on, this isn't the one we thought we were voting for, like the Dan Cardens of the world and all these horrors that are in the Labour Party. They should be able to be recalled anytime. And I mean anytime. You pull them back and you say, no, I'm sorry, you're not representing us, off you go. And I think that's one of the main things we've got to fight for. If we want radical change, because you have to be brave, you have to be forthright, you have to be knowledgeable. And I just want to answer somebody else's point who talked about war and authoritarianism. Do you know what? One of the reasons that Harold Wilson couldn't join America in their war on Vietnam wasn't because he was a good guy. He was decent. But because the movement was so big, the Labour and Trade Union was so big and powerful at that time, we stayed their hand. And we really did. They saw the massive demonstrations outside the American embassy, the power that we felt, honest to God, it was immense. And we can feel that again, and we can wield that power again. So, it doesn't matter, these bloody leaders, honest to God, I could do without them. All my life, I've just been an activist. I've never held a position, a councillor or an MP, but I've won so many things, I really have. And a lot of us around the country have done that. And guess what? We don't do it on our own. We do it with all the other activists around us. And that's how we build solidarity. One of us stands up because maybe they've been picked on in the workplace or whatever, and you've joined forces with the comrades around you. And that's how you get the feeling of solidarity and how wonderful and powerful solidarity is, you know. And there's too many of these people. I'm not attacking people, I can understand it, but there's too many focused on elections, because it isn't through elections from above that somebody changes the law for us on some issue or stops some injustice. It's only out of the power of the movement underneath them that burns their feet. You know, it's a fire behind them, and they go, oh, I better do this. And they end up having to do it because the movement below is powerful. And guess what? We're in that mood again. That's the mood that's here. As some people said on this on this meet, which I thought was fabulous, you know, we thought would be less people. With actual fact, there's more people. Because the way they're behaving is making thinking, well, Christ, there's only us. It's only us. And it is always only us. So don't be fooled. But saying that, I've got a lot of admiration for Jeremy. He made a lot of mistakes, but one thing he did was infect us all. He infected us all with the reality that people do support the ideas of socialism, ABC. People used to say all my life, oh, no, we won't, nobody will vote for that. Nobody wants that. That's too left wing. But he proved, and guess what? We all knew there was a movement there, but they didn't. Even Jeremy didn't. John MacDonald, all of them. And all the others have done is betray him. And good enough, you've got to respect Jeremy. He was absolutely immense with what he had to put up with. You can't say he wasn't a leader. He was absolutely exceptional. But he had everybody against him. And he also had his own party against him, the right of the party, the media and everything. So one other point is the ruling class. The guy who said that, honest to God, he's dead right. We have the ruling class to contend with. And that's why we're talking about a mass party. You know, it's got to be a mass party because they are vicious. They can lead the whole world on corruption and manipulation and all the rest of it. And of course, even Jeremy, you know, was threatened with the armed forces. The head of the armed forces came on the television and said there'd be a coup. You know, there'd be a coup if Jeremy Corbyn was allowed to take power. They even said, you know, they even had targets on the face of Jeremy Corbyn on the soldiers as the soldiers shot and did target practice at the face of Jeremy Corbyn. So have no doubt we have got a hell of a battle, a serious battle ahead of us. But, you know, what else is there? Third World War, the planet destroyed, everybody in poverty. These people will never stop driving us into poverty. They really won't. So even on that basis, the cruelty of the ruling class worldwide, but exceptionally vicious in our country, exceptionally vicious. So I should really finish because I'm sure you've all had enough. It's been a long evening. But definitely, and I said it at the beginning, this party will fly. And it'll definitely fly because of the mood and the terror people feel and that pit of the stomach, you know, fear you have every day because you know the world is going down the pan. So have confidence in work, because what matters on the ground, if we're hanging on every word from Jeremy and Zara, we'll be in a bad way. Just get out there, do the stuff that's going on all round the country, and have faith in the working class and have faith that if we fight hard enough, we will win.